Okay, so we are finally here. We are going to begin our coverage over Judgment Day. But when it comes to this video, we're going to cover Eve of Judgment and then cover Judgment Day #1. After that, we'll then go ahead and cover all the different books in multiple videos, but it shouldn't take us that long to actually do it. My main goal is to wrap the entire series up by hopefully the end of October or early November. Either way, when it comes to Judgment Day, the first book, Eve of Judgment, it reminds me of Christmas Eve. And what I mean by that, when it comes to Christmas Eve, you know, everybody is coming together, they're sitting down, it's a quiet night. Some of y'all might have Christmas dinner on Christmas Eve. It's all peaceful. But then Christmas Day, oh, that's when everything goes crazy. Kids are screaming, you got presents opening up left and right, everybody's having fun, it's a great celebration, it's going nuts. It reminds me of that right there when I heard the idea of Eve of Judgment. Because Eve of Judgment is just everybody is calm. Everybody is relaxing, having a good old day. But when you jump into Judgment Day #1, that is when everything just goes off the rockers. Everybody's going crazy. War has begun between the mutants and also the Eternals. And so getting into today's video, we pick up with Druig. Now let's not forget, we just wrapped up our coverage over the latest Eternal series, and we had just learned that Druig has now become the Prime Eternal, because at the end of that series, he was able to help the other Eternals take down Thanos, which of course gave him a promotion to become the Prime Eternal, the one in charge of all Eternals across the board. But he's right now trying to find a way to unite all Eternals together so that he'll have more Eternals on his side and he can stay in charge of all the Eternals. But with that being said, he found a huge secret about the Deviants. See, when it came to the Deviants, originally they were left to believe the Deviants always have to die when they turn evil, because both Eternals and Deviants were created by Celestials, except Deviants at first are good, but then they change and turn evil. And once they turn evil, the Eternals kill them off. And that was their endless war for so many years. But we had learned that technically the Deviants were made to help bring in new kind of beings on the planet Earth, like the Mutants. And so the Mutants are technically Deviants, except when it comes to Druig, he feels like they should all be killed off, the mutant race, because at this point in time, we are left to believe that the Mutants are actually part Deviants. And so now you have Druig saying, I can use this as a way to bring all Eternals together to help me take down the mutant race. And once I do that, I'll have so many people on my side, I will stay as the Prime Eternal. Now let's not forget, we do have an outcast group of Eternals at the moment. And when it comes to this outcast group, well, they're trying to change things for the betterment of both Eternals, but also the Deviants. Because in the last series that we had covered, we had learned that every single time an Eternal dies and they're brought back to life thanks to the Great Machine, a human dies to help them bring them back to life. Now let's not forget, the Great Machine is really the Earth. The Great Machine is built inside the Earth. It helps keep the Earth alive. But like I said, every single time an Eternal dies, well, a human has to die to bring them back to life. And so when it comes to our outcast group here of Eternals, they're trying to find a better way for the Great Machine to work without killing humans off at all, because the Eternals were assigned to protect humans. But now you're saying that we're out there killing humans every single time we die. How in the world are we protecting them if we are killing them? Now, you do have this outcast group staying with the Deviants in the Deviants capital, except you still have some Deviants look at the Eternals as enemies. Because yes, you do have this group right now trying to make things better for both Deviants and Eternals. But at the same time, you still have some Deviants look at the outcast group of Eternals like, You guys are the bad guys. You have slaughtered our people for many, many years. Yes, you're trying to make things better, but that cannot go away over one night. It's going to take a very long time. And this is where we get reminded of Phastos, because remember, Phastos was the first guy to figure out the dark secret of the Eternals, because he was the first person brought back to life after the last war the Eternals had. And so once he was able to come back to life first, he was able to find out the dark secret of the Eternals. Now, he had this weird master plan to hopefully change how the Great Machine worked, but part of his great plan was to use Thanos, and so he brought Thanos back to life, which was a dumb idea because it's Thanos. He is always going to ruin your plans, no matter what. And he did for Phastos. Now, at the end of that story, Thanos and Druig was able to capture Phastos and lock him away in the Excluded. Now remember, the Excluded is more of, if you are eternal and you break some kind of law, you are locked away forever in the Excluded. And so when it came to Phastos, he technically did break a law when it came to bringing Thanos back to life, and that right there should not happen at all, but he did, and so he was locked away for that and other things as well. But the reason why we're seeing him now, because Druig wants Phastos to help out two other Eternals with their own idea. Now, the two other Eternals are A.X.E and Makkari, and these two Eternals have one heck of a crazy idea when it comes to Phastos helping them. And this is where we kind of find out what A.X.E and Makkari are trying to do. They are trying to create a god. Yeah, you heard that right. They're trying to create a god, because let's not forget, when it came to the Eternals, they did what they did because the Celestials told them that. And when it came to some Eternals, they were able to communicate with Celestials. So like A.X.E and Makkari, except the Celestials have not been around in a very long time. And so for A.X.E or even for Makkari, they begin to realize that maybe the Celestials have forgotten about them and it's time to make a new god to actually work for. And so they came to Phastos with their actual game plan on how to make a god. Now, we are not told how in the world they're going to do it, but apparently Phastos does see their master plan, and he does believe their master plan will be able to make a new god, except once they do that, they have no idea how that new god is going to act. But they don't care what Phastos had to say about that. All they want to hear is that if they're able to make a god, which they are able to do. Now, here's the thing, because after he leaves, we kind of find out, or really, we get reminded that they have captured Mr. Sinister. Because let's not forget, at the end of X-Men number 12, we saw him get taken away, but we had no idea what happened to him. Wait, was it X-Men 12 or Immortal X-Men number 4? Either way, we saw him get taken away, and we had no idea who had kidnapped him. Now we know it was A.X.E and also Makkari, and they're going to use him to help them create their god. But we jump over to the outcasts of the Eternals, who are staying with the Deviants at their capital city. But this time, we're going to focus on the Deviants. And the reason why, because you now have the Deviants feel like they have something great to be proud of. And what I mean by that, when it came to the Deviants, for many, and I mean literally many years, they have been hunted down by the Eternals, because when the Celestials had made the Eternals, but also the Deviants, it felt like the Celestials had messed up with the Deviants, because every single Deviant turns evil. And when they do turn evil, the Eternals has to kill them off. And so for many years, you had that going on for so long. And so now they hear that basically the Deviants are not the problems, that Deviants were made to kind of help bring other powerful beings onto the earth, like the mutants. And so they feel great about it. But when it comes to our outcast group, they know that sooner or later, the rest of the Eternals who have not joined their group, but at the same time on Druig's side, are going to come after them and also any other being that could be related to the Deviants at all. We did pick up with Druig, and when we do, we kind of find out that Druig had created some kind of bomb alongside with Domo, and when it comes to this bomb, it should be able to kill off all mutants just like that across the board. That is a very powerful bomb. The problem is though, when they go to activate the bomb, well, something happens to them and they scream out, "We must protect the great machine," and they turn the bomb off. And they're wondering why in the world, when they turn on their bomb, that happened right there. What's going on with the mutants? And you have Domo say, "I realized something. When it comes to the island of Krakoa, it's actually part of the great machine, the Earth." And so, of course, when we tried to use our bomb on the mutants, it was also hitting Krakoa, and that was a huge problem. We were attacking the actual part of the great machine, and so now we have to find a different way to kill off all the mutants across the board. And so you have Druig go to the one person who could most likely help him kill off all the mutants across the board, and that would be Uranos, the grandfather to Druig, but also could be the grandfather to Thanos. And this guy was a very powerful Eternal. He also made a lot of different weapons that he was trying to use back in the past against the Deviants, because he believed that all Deviants should be killed off. And so when Druig comes to him and say, "Hey man, listen, I found out that mutants are technically part of the Deviant race, we have to get rid of them," he's all like, "I'm down." But at the same time, the only reason why I'm down because I find it funny that someone like you, Druig, who had just became the prime Eternal, is already begging for my help. Pitiful. But at the same time, I'm ready to bring a whole lot of death. But then we get into the actual Judgment Day event. And let me tell y'all, this is where things begin to get wild. Now, at first, it seems like a normal day once again. And when we jump into this second chapter, Judgment Day number 1, well, we see someone talking to us, the readers. But apparently, it's not the Great Machine. It's something else that we have not seen yet. And the question is, what is this new thing that is trying to tell us this story? But then we pick up with Tony Stark having dinner with Cersei. Now, when it comes to the two characters having dinner with one another, this dinner is very important for a lot of different reasons. The main reason why, because the last time these two characters had dinner, Cersei used Tony as a way to bring out the Forgotten One. But at the same time, after that, Tony found out that Thanos was on Earth. And the Eternals did not tell any of the Earth heroes that Thanos was there. But on top of that, Thanos had become the prime Eternal. Tony Stark felt like he had the right as one of the Earth mighty heroes to know that Thanos was on Earth. But on top of that, has taken over the Eternals. Now by this point, Thanos has been locked away and defeated. But still, Tony Stark believes that he should have known that. And so you have Cersei try her best to apologize, but she's not really sorry, because when it comes to her, it was an internal problem, not an Avenger problem. Eternals handle their own problems without outside help, like the Avengers. Either way, out of nowhere, you have the Phoenix appear, which right now is Echo. She grabs Cersei and knocks her out. And apparently the Avengers had planned this the entire time, because they know that something big is coming when it comes to the Eternals. But then we pick up with Cyclops and Jean Grey. And this is very important because When we do, this is them trying to deal with the idea of the entire world now knowing that the mutant race has the ability to bring people back to life, except they can't bring everyone back to life. They can only bring mutants back to life. But the public, the people, other countries are not listening to that fact right there. All they hear is that when it comes to the mutant race, they have the ability to bring people back to life, not realizing that if you are a human, unfortunately, they cannot do that. And so you have the public just very upset at the X-Men without knowing all of the facts. And for Jean Grey, she's wondering what could happen to the X-Men, but to also other mutants across the world, because it could be attacked or hated on just the idea that we're not sharing our technology with bringing folks back to life. But this is where we pick up with Destiny, Mystique, and Nightcrawler. And let's not forget, Destiny has been telling us in our last few videos that a war is coming very soon. The question was, what kind of war? Who are the mutants going to fight against? Now we already know, it is the Eternals. But for our heroes right now, the X-Men, they have no idea, but they're finding out right at this moment. And so when she says, oh my gosh, I now know who's our enemies, it's going to be the Eternals, you have Nightcrawler rush over to Arakko, the second mutant nation on Mars, to warn the X-Men Red Team about what's coming very soon when it comes to the Eternals. And once he does run over to Mars, he warns Storm, Magneto, and Cable about the war that is coming very soon. Here's the thing, because when it comes to Magneto and Storm and Cable, they're not scared. But for Magneto, it's really more about the idea that the mutants are no longer second class, that mutants are now first class. They are gods, and they will be able to handle the Eternals like it's no big deal. And so he's telling Nightcrawler, don't worry, everything is going to be okay. But getting back over to Tony Stark, we see Tony Stark right now interrogating Cersei. And this again is really more of him saying, I know that the Eternals are hiding something from us. Now I have no idea what you guys are actually hiding from us, but I feel like there's something you guys should be telling us at the moment. And Cersei is not telling him anything at all, because she feels like, once again, this is an eternal problem. Anything going on with the Eternals should be handled by the Eternals. Except you have Tony Stark say, that is not going to be okay right now, because my systems had detected something big happening at this location on the Earth. And he's talking about Druig's bomb. And he's wondering, what are you guys planning to do? Because if you are trying to go to war with the mutants, I need to know why and what you guys are going to do. But Tony has no idea that when it comes to Cersei and her group of Eternals, they have left the other Eternals. They are technically outcasts right now. They're trying to make things better for the entire world, not just for the Eternals, but also for the humans. But Tony does not know that, because again, Cersei has not given him any kind of update at all what's going on with the Eternals. But you have Tony say, I detected a huge amount of energy that seemed like it was targeted toward the mutants, which tells me a war is coming soon. And she says, I am the wrong Eternal that you should be focusing on. Right now, the one that you should be focusing on is Druig. And she's right, because when we pick up with Druig, he's meeting up with other high officials of the Eternals. And he's telling them, this is what I just learned. That basically the mutants are just an off branch of Deviants. And so we need to go after them and stop them right now. And you have all the Eternals agree. And this is Druig getting what he wanted, which is that having more people on his side to seem like he is a great leader. And taking care of business is what he's doing right now to get a better high approval rate. Either way, now you have the Eternals all agreeing to go after the mutant race. But let's not forget that Druig also met up with Uranos, and they have made a deal. Uranos is able to leave his cell to help the Eternals deal with this deviant problem. And right now, he is going to wipe out a lot of mutants very quickly because he only has 1 hour to be able to be free from his cell. Once that hour is up, he's going to be teleported right back to his cage, his cell. And so he says, don't worry, I'm going to make sure this hour is actually worth it to help out my fellow Eternals, but to also show that Uranos should be free and he's the right person to be in charge of the Eternals. And that is when we see the Eternals attack Krakoa first, and they go full force. Now, while you have the Eternals doing that, we cannot forget that Moira McTaggart is also helping out the Eternals with this war, because at the end of the Hellfire Gala event 2022, we saw her meet up with Druig and Jack of Knives to tell them what they should do when it comes to attacking Krakoa. Now, when it comes to their attacks, they do all different kinds of attacks, but their main goal is to go after the Five. Because if you are able, sorry, I heard I'm saying that, if you are able to get rid of the Five, then the mutant race will be unable to bring back their people. Because again, the Five are the ones who make you brand new clone bodies and then download your memories into those new clone bodies. And so if you take them away, the mutants are no longer able to bring themselves back to life in those clone bodies. And matter of fact, we do see some members of the Five get killed off, but luckily they were able to make copies of themselves just in case for situations like these right here. And so once the attack is over, you have Moira McTaggart say, you failed, because your main goal to win this war was to get rid of the Five. And now they're still alive. There's no way you'll be able to win this war. But then you have Druig say, oh, listen, when it comes to my ideas of planning, I always have a backup plan or different plans going on at the same time. So yeah, I may have missed my chance to kill off the Five, but I always have other plans going on. And what Druig meant by that comment was, when it came to Uranos, that was technically his other plan he had in motion. And he gave Uranos just 1 hour. And that 1 hour is what Uranos needed to just go over to Arakko and just literally wreck the place. I mean, there is death everywhere. And we're left to believe that Arakko was completely wiped out by Uranos. That there were not one single mutant able to stand up against the power of Uranos. And so after that 1 hour passed, he came back to his cell and he's all like, hey man, I'll tell you right now, I truly messed up Arakko. Like, Arakko got erased almost completely. And so that is when you have Druig sent out a message to the entire world by using technology. And when he does, this is him saying, hello world, I am Druig, I am the Prime Eternal, and I came here to tell you that I, the Prime Eternal, and my people were sent here to protect the human race. But unfortunately, we have not done our job. We let the mutant race get out of control. See, the mutants are deviants, and we were assigned to deal with deviants. And so with the mutant race now being out there and being a off branch of the deviant line, well, that means we have a work to do, which is get rid of the mutant race. We realize they have stepped out of line, and it's time for us to erase them, to kill them off. So this war is going to get very, very messy. But on top of that, I want to tell you guys that when it comes to the Eternals, we're not all humans. Some of us come in different kind of size and shapes. And that is when we see these tall, towering creatures who are apparently Eternals as well, known as the Hex. And this is Druig saying the war has officially begun. We are going to get rid of the mutant race. But you do have the Avengers wanting to try their best to stop this war from actually happening. And so you have the Avengers leave their base to hopefully stop the war between the Eternals and the Mutants. Except Tony Stark stays behind. And the reason why, because you have Tony Stark being confronted by Ajax, Makkari, and Mr. Sinister, who's now their hostage. And let's not forget, Ajax and Makkari are trying to make a new god. And they're coming to Tony for help to create this new god. But on top of that, for Tony, he says, well, I don't know if I can do that. And they say, oh, yes, you can. Because let's not forget, the Avengers base is inside the body of a Celestial, the first host. We can turn him into our new god. And this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please hit that like button down below and subscribe. Also, if you have any suggestions on books I should read, well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But guys, I'll see y'all next time. Later.